NFL picks for week 3, 2020. Over the last couple of weeks, my record has been pretty good. I have to say that I'm actually very pleasantly surprised. I have a winning percentage of 750, which is 3 out of 4 of my picks have been winners. I have a record of 24-8. That is a 4-to-1 ratio. You can't do too much better than that. And I'm pretty sure that there are a lot of handicappers out there that wish that they had my record right now. Let's see. Hopefully, I'll be able to keep it going. As you come in, please hit the like button. I really would appreciate that. And we're about to start. Here, my first pick is, of course, this Thursday night's game. I did not get that pick in time last week, but I did take the loss. This week will be a little bit tougher, I believe. The Miami Dolphins go into Jacksonville to take on the surprising Jaguars. Miami, the first week they were dreadful. The second week they played a little bit better, but to no avail. They lost again. While Jacksonville has done remarkably well, especially considering everybody that exited that team last year. They were in total chaos. They've done a lot better. And a lot of that is due to their quarterback. I tell you, Gardner Minshew he's very resourceful. I'll put it that way. And he does have a strong arm. I mean, he never gives up on a play, and sometimes that is to his detriment. Sort of like a pocket Roethlisberger, so to speak. But he has performed well. And let's face it, Miami. I mean, they're okay, but they're not great. Their defense is abysmal. Now, you would think their secondary would be better than what it is, but I don't think Miami's pass rush has done enough to help them. And I do believe that it's going to continue here. Chark is going to have a big game. Their wide receiver. He's in his third year. He's a very good player. I like the Jaguars 27-23 over the Miami Dolphins in this Thursday night game. I think it's going to be a lot more entertaining than people will anticipate. Next up, the Houston Texans go into Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. I'll go more into this game, into the Steeler report. Well, in fact, it's saying that my connection right now is unstable. If it does not get any better, I'll probably try it again and come back. But let's just hope that we can fight through this, and I'll just continue to do my NFL picks. The Steelers tried to give away that game against Denver and the backup quarterback, Driscoll. They really did. You know, sometimes that defensive coordinator wants to play too much zone. He drives me absolutely crazy with that. I understand it to a point because let's face it, Joe Hayden has seen his better days. In fact, the better corner. In fact, he was the better corner last year. Now, Joe Hayden is more of a risk-reward type of player. But if you ask who is the more solid corner, the better cover corner, it is the guy that is opposite him. I mean, it's not even close. And I always tend to mess up this kid's name because it's not. I mean, I'm so used to thinking of it's Cortland Sutton for the most part for the Steelers, but it's Steven Nelson. That's the guy who I'm trying to think of. Steven Nelson has played much better than Joe Hayden. Joe Hayden gets more picks, but he takes more risks also. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, he has performed well for us, but you can tell he's getting long in the tooth and he cannot keep up with these wide receivers like he once was able to do. Steven Nelson, on the other hand, has been terrific. Now, the Steelers do need more speed at that position of corner or nickel. I mean, Hinton is good, but you know what? When we whiffed on Artie Burns, and Artie Burns was dreadful for us, I forgot what team picked him up. God bless them. because Artie Burns was given every opportunity, and he failed miserably for the Steelers. Houston is surprisingly 0-2. Deshaun Watson did play better last week. Obviously, I'm a huge Steeler fan, always have been. I mean, I go back to the days of John Stallworth, Lynn Swann, the real Steel Curtain. The Steel Curtain was really 4 guys. It wasn't the entire defense. It was LC, Dwight White, Ernie Holmes, and of course, the greatest Steeler of them all, from a player standpoint, Mr. Mean Joe Green. The Steeler defense, I'm not going to say that they show flashes of that. They are a pretty good defense. They're not a great defense yet. Only time will tell. And it is much harder to play defense in today's NFL. No question about it. But I can't compare them to the entire Steel Curtain defense because the secondary is nowhere near what the Steel Curtain secondary was. When you have Mel Blount and Donnie Shell, I mean, I'll tell you what, those 2 guys, it's hard to find a better corner safety combination than that. Very hard. Then you add the linebacking core with Lambert, Ham, and at that time, I believe it was Andy Russell. And of course, the legendary front 4, probably the best front 4 of all time. If you want to say that Deacon Jones and those guys with the Los Angeles Rams were better, you know what? I'm not going to argue with you. All I'm going to say is they have 4 rings. The Rams didn't even sniff a Super Bowl when they've had opportunities. They got either beat by the Packers or they got beat by other teams. And I like the Rams, and I love that. Listen, that's a legendary defense. I don't even want to hear about the Purple People Eaters. I don't want to hear about Doomsday. The Steelers beat Doomsday twice. If you want to say the no-name Miami defense, listen, they're not at that caliber. They're just not. And if I hear anything about the 85 Bears, we went through this. I did a video on this. Listen, there's only maybe 4 guys on that defense, maybe, that could play on that Steel Curtain defense. And that Dan Hampton, Richard Dent, Mike Singletary, and maybe Gary Fensick. And that's it. Now, if you want to say Wilbur Marshall, I might give you that. I might give you Wilbur Marshall over Andy Russell. I think Wilbur Marshall is one of the most underrated players. But just going by that standpoint, the Steel Curtain defense is the greatest of all time, in my opinion. And I don't think it's even close. This has absolutely nothing to do with Sunday's game. And as big of a Steeler fan that I am, I'm afraid that Houston's not going to go 0-3. I know they can't afford to go 0-3. I would love to see them lose. You know me. But I have to go with the Texans here, 28-24 over the Steelers. I tell you what, I would love to see the Steelers beat the Texans because I think Bill O'Brien is one of those coaches that could, by midseason, definitely walk the plank. Next up, the Cincinnati Bengals go into Philadelphia to take on another disappointing team, the Philadelphia Eagles. They have been absolutely dreadful. They got their butts handed to them last week. They got their butts handed to them in Washington. I tell you what, you talk about a guy who could walk the plank, Doug Peterson. I understand that he won the Super Bowl with the Eagles. That was with Nick Foles at quarterback. I have not seen Carson Wentz take that quantum leap. Is he a top 10 quarterback? He might be at the bottom rung of that. He might be a notch below that. He has not performed the way that I thought he would perform. Now, some of that is due to his lack of receivers. And he lost another one last week in Rieger. Cincinnati played well on offense last week, but unfortunately, they play defense too, and that's something the Bengals haven't done in about 7 years. If the Eagles, and listen, obviously, due to COVID-19, there's really no true home field advantage outside of knowing the field. That's the only reason I'm going with the Eagles is that they're at Lincoln Financial. If it weren't for that, I would be thinking of choosing the Bengals, but I just can't choose them. I can't. And I like Joe Burrow. Burrow could light them up. And I'm not saying Cincinnati couldn't win this game, but I do think the Eagles are a more desperate team, and they know they lose this game, they can forget it. I mean, let's face it, they're lucky they're in the NFC East. Because the Cowboys were gifted a game they had no business winning. And the Washington football team got smoked out in the desert. So the Eagles are they win this game, they're still in it. They know this. They need to pick it up. Eagles 31, Bengals 24 is the next game. After that, the San Francisco 49ers, you talk about a team decimated by injury. I mean, losing Bosa for the season changes. In fact, they lost 2 defensive linemen. I'm not sure if Garoppolo is going to play this week. I don't even know if they need him against the Giants because they are in MetLife Stadium again. And they have already filed a grievance with the NFL about the field. And I understand it. I mean, when you lose the players that they lost, and that field it's sort of shit about it. But Giants are bad. Talking about losing guys. Saquon Barkley out for the season. Not that the Giants were going to do anything, I think, this year anyway. I think this coach is a clown. Every guy from that Bill Belichick coaching tree has been a joke. Shepard's probably going to be out for a couple of weeks. Offensive line isn't great. 49ers still have enough on that line. Enough at linebacker. I'm going to go 49ers 28-24 over the New York Giants. Next up, we have the Las Vegas Raiders. They're a surprising team to take on the New England Patriots at Foxborough. Listen, they beat I tell you what, Drew Brees looked bad. He did. He looks like he's washed. But got to give the Raiders credit. They brought in that home in style. Cam Newton has played tremendous football. In fact, he has played better than expected the first couple of weeks. I mean, he torched Seattle. Seattle just happened to have a better team on all the way around. But he did everything in his power. I mean, Cam Newton, he is tremendous. He could finish in the top 3 of the MVP balloting if the Patriots win 11 or more games. He has been that good. Now, obviously, it's very early in the season. We only have a 2-week sample size, so I don't want to go too crazy. But considering where he was and the injuries that he's coming back from, he has been tremendous. And I'm rolling with New England easily over the Raiders. Double digits. I like them 34-24 over Derek Carr and the Raiders. I understand Derek Carr's played pretty well. Jacobs is a very good running back. I just don't trust that Raiders secondary at all. I don't. I think Newton's going to carve him up. The Patriots have played much better on the offensive side than they did. I tell you what, last year they couldn't do it. I mean, Brady still looks washed, but that's another story. We'll get to him in a moment. The next game, the Tennessee Titans go into Minnesota to take on the Vikings. The Vikings have been mediocre now. They bounce back from their first week's loss. You know I don't trust Kirk Cousins. I do trust Dalvin Cook in that defense. I trust Adam Thielen. The Titans, I trust them more overall as a team. But when it comes down to it, you know me, I have absolutely zero trust in Ryan Tannehill. None. None whatsoever. I just don't like him. Never did. I know that he got paid off of, listen, he got paid because he was able to play action off of Derrick Henry. Now they're shutting him down a little bit, but Tannehill has held up his end, to be fair. And Tennessee has started out well. Do I see them beating the Vikings in Minnesota? Absolutely not. I like the Vikings here 27-24 over the Tennessee Titans. Next up, the Washington football team goes into Cleveland to take on the Browns. The Browns had a big win. I mean, they tried to lose that game against the Cincinnati Bengals. Dwayne Haskins, you know what? The jury is still out on him. Now, has he played a little bit better? Yes. Does he still have to look over his shoulder? Well, I guess we'll know in 2 more weeks. And I like him. I really like Dwayne Haskins, but maybe it's the weapons. Because he only has one very good receiver. The rest of them, not so much. You know I can't stand Baker Mayfield, but he played pretty decent. I don't know what's that saying because they are the Bengals. Odell Beckham came back from that from the excrement thing. I tell you, he played very well. I mean, maybe they should talk about him more. Obviously, the running back situation is very solid with Chubb and Kareem Hunt. I don't know. I don't want to pick the Browns, but I think I'm going to have to. I'm going to have to go Cleveland 24, Washington 20. And I really want to I want to pick the Redskins, but I just can't. I mean, Haskins has to show me a little bit more. Next up, the Rams go into Buffalo to face the Bills. The Rams have done pretty decent. Listen, they stole one against the Cowboys. Jared Goff is good. I get it. Their running game is so-so. Buffalo has been firing on all cylinders. Now, they tried to lose that game to Miami last week also. They could have done a better job as well. But I like Josh Allen. He's a man's quarterback. I like the way they built that team around him. I like that defense. I like that running game. Look at the receivers he has now, and he has had them all at his disposal, and he's used it all. I think that they're going to blow out the Rams myself. I think the Rams, they looked a little bit better than what they truly are, and they're going to come back to earth this week. I like the Bills 31-20 over the LA Rams. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. Next up, we have the Chicago Bears going up against the Atlanta Falcons. The Bears are somewhat surprising at 2-0. I did pick them to beat the Giants myself. I didn't think they would win their first game. The Atlanta Falcons, that is a shameful loss against the Cowboys. There's no way they should have lost that football game this past Sunday. Listen, they should have fired that head coach after that Super Bowl debacle. The fact that he still has a job after that loss, Arthur Blank just likes giving out checks. There's no way this man should have a job. No way whatsoever. But yet, here he is coaching the Falcons again. Now, Mitch Trubisky has played pretty well for the most part. Now, he didn't play that well in the fourth quarter against the Giants, and they almost gave that game away. That Falcons defense, we know is dreadful. We know it. But I don't think the Bears are going to win a shootout in Atlanta against the Falcons, Matt Ryan, and all the offense at that disposal. I just don't see it. If the Falcons are going to win a game, they better win this week, or else, listen, everybody's got to go. I mean, I don't care if you want to get rid of Matt Ryan, get rid of coaching staff. I don't care. People, you know what? After a while, you have to start retooling for the future here. And Matt Ryan certainly is not it. Matt Ryan is getting up there. He's long in the tooth. Julio Jones has so many years left in him, too. I mean, that's how bad the Falcons have been over the past couple of years, ever since they gave up that huge Super Bowl. But I have to pick the Falcons here. I just don't trust Chicago on the road. I don't. Falcons 38, Chicago 27. Next up, the Carolina Panthers, who are going to be without Christian McCaffrey for at least 3 to 4 weeks, will go up against Justin Herbert and the young Chargers. The Chargers almost came up with the upset special against the Kansas City Chiefs. I would have loved to have seen that myself, but you know what? Herbert looked very good. It's going to be interesting to see what Carolina does without Christian McCaffrey, probably the best running back in pro football. Now it's going to be up to Teddy Bridgewater. The defense has not been great. The Chargers defense has been pretty good, though. Listen, that is no small feat, holding that Kansas City offense to 23 points. Listen, I can't get mad at the Chargers defense. I think the Charger defense will do well this upcoming week against the Panthers. I like them 24-17 at home over the Carolina Panthers. Next up, the New York Jets, which from top to bottom, you can make a case they're the worst team in the NFL. Listen, between the Jets and Giants and the Falcons right now, and there are a couple other teams you could put in the mix. You want to put Denver in the mix? I mean, these are some of the worst teams in the NFL, bar none. But I tell you what, as far as talent or lack thereof, especially with an injured Le'Veon Bell and Jamison Crowder, I think the Jets are the worst team in football. I really do. Sam Darnold just doesn't do it for me. He has regressed so badly. And it's hard to say how good he is because the offensive line hasn't held up their end either. Phillip Rivers looked washed up too. I understand they won last week. He wasn't that great. The problem is you don't have to be great against the Jets. The Jets are that bad. The Jets are dreadful. I like the Colts 27-20 over the Jets. And I tell you what, if you want to talk about coaches that should be fired sooner rather than later, Adam Gase is at the top of my list, bar none. I can't stand this guy. He only has a job because he happened to be on the Denver staff with Peyton Manning. He stinks. I keep hearing how he's such a quarterback whisperer. How's that worked out for the Jets so far and Sam Darnold? Again, Colts 27, Jets 20. Next up, Dallas goes into Seattle to take on the Seahawks. Dallas had no business winning this football game last week. That was dreadful. Their defense is abysmal. I understand they have some injuries. Obviously, Van Der Esch, their secondary is not as strong as it once was. But there's no way they should have won that game last week. They should be thanking the heavens that Atlanta's so dreadful. The Seahawks, that was a nice win they had. I mean, they had the battle. Their defense isn't as good as it once was, but it's good enough. And I do believe it'll be good enough to take on the Cowboys. The Cowboys are not that great. I tell you what, Tyron Smith, that left tackle situation, this guy is always hurt. Over the past 3 years, he has been more hurt than available. And it's so bad. The offensive line is not what it used to be. And it's sad because Ezekiel Elliott has actually ran the ball pretty well. But the Seahawks also remember when Dallas knocked them out in the playoffs a couple of years ago. I think the Seahawks, still have some revenge on their minds. I like the Seahawks here, 31-23 at home over the Cowboys. Next up, the Tampa Bay Bucks go into Denver and take on the Broncos. Listen, they're playing a second-string quarterback in Jake Driscoll. Tom Brady played a little bit better, not much better. I mean, you can hear some dissension in the ranks, but to me, it's a little too early to make too much of it. I think if they keep winning, it'll get better. The Broncos aren't as good as they used to be. I mean, even though they almost won against the Steelers, the Steelers tried to give it away. I think they will. I think the Broncos will keep it closer than people think, but I do believe Tampa Bay will come away with the victory. I like the Bucks 27-24 over the Denver Broncos up at Mile High. Next up, I see that Detroit goes into Arizona to take on the Cardinals. I like the way Arizona has played the last couple of weeks. Kyler Murray, he keeps this up. He's going to get some MVP discussion. No question about it. I'm a fan of his, no question about it. Obviously, Hopkins, Kirk, and the legendary Larry Fitzgerald. The defense has played a lot better. Now, I understand the sample size is not great. But Matthew Stafford, they've regressed too, Detroit. And I tell you what, Matt Patricia could be another one that could walk the plank. No question about it. He should do much better with a healthy Matt Stafford at quarterback and the weapons that they have. I understand that Galladay's been hurt. He might come back this week. I mean, it's early. We will see by the time the injuries report hit. We don't know. But I don't care if Galladay's playing or not. I like Arizona. And I like the way their defense is playing. 31-24 Arizona over the Detroit Lions. Now, the Sunday night game has the Green Bay Packers going into New Orleans to take on the Saints. The Saints lost a bad game last Monday night against the Raiders, while Green Bay pretty much cruised. I tell you, these are the type of games where in past times, the Saints, after a loss like that, come back and beat the brakes off of the team the next week. Unfortunately, it looks like Drew Brees is, I don't know if he's on that cliff, but he's definitely on a sliding scale. And he's not the same quarterback that he was 2 years ago, because you could see it coming last year. But I do think the Packers defense is not going to travel well in that dome. Now, they don't have to deal with the crowd noise, but they still have to deal with the precision and the speed that the Saints have. And I do like the Saints, especially after that type of loss that they had. I'm going to pick the Saints to beat the Packers 28-24. And that leaves me with the night game where the Kansas City Chiefs go into Baltimore to take on the Ravens. Now, the Chiefs barely won last week, but that was a division game against the LA Chargers, and they always play them tough. Now, this is going to be a good old-fashioned shootout because the Ravens' defense is not what it used to be. Now, Kansas City's defense has improved, and as long as Kansas City can get after the passer, they're always in it. Now, they're going to probably have to leave a spy on Jackson. But Jackson has passed the ball so well. Do you really want to do that? Maybe you just want to rush 4 guys and try to contain him. Because if you leave a spy, you're leaving too many guys open. He has too many weapons at that wide receiver position. He's got Hollywood Brown, the tight end Andrews and friends. Mark Ingram has played well for them, also running the ball. Listen, the Ravens are going to put up some points. Unfortunately, this is the type of game that the Chiefs win because you cannot get into a shootout with Pat Mahomes, that wide receiver core, that tight end, and now they have a running back. Forget it. I like Kansas City 38-31 over the Baltimore Ravens. And those are my NFL picks for week 3 of 2020. Thank you so much for joining me, ladies and gentlemen. Please like, share, and subscribe. This is Uncle Claude signing out. Take care and God bless.